Last season we covered the crazy insane Thundercrash build, which really was insane, but today we're going to recreate that for an updated Season 14 Arc Thundercrash build with a few slight changes using some of the new mods introduced this season. And now it doesn't matter if you're doing Lost Sectors or Master Nightfalls whilst underpowered, this Arc build is going to melt bosses and champions, give you fast super and ability regeneration, all whilst maximising Boss DPS and ad clearing to extreme levels for end game content. So guys, rate, comment, sub, share, because this is the 37th class build video in total overall on my channel, so let's not delay, let's play. Now, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, we've got quite a few class build videos here on the channel, so if you want to see more or you've missed any, the links to them are below, and there is a card in the top right to both Season 13 and Season 14 class build playlists. Now that said, let's start. So this Thundercrash build became meta last season when we got the Cuirass of the Fallen Star exotic, and we will be using that for this build, which we will get to shortly. But with this build, you'll be able to completely destroy tough ads, champions and bosses with a single slam to the face, but we'll optimise this build for both casual and end game activities to maximise the build's potential, whether you have the best exotics in the game or not. Firstly, for a quick overview of how this build works, we'll run into any type of ad or champion, perform a finisher which will generate 2 arc elemental wells, and picking up those wells will grant us 4 stacks of charge with light, in addition to a fair amount of ability energy. You'll go on a killing spree with your weapons to build up super energy and create orbs of power from masterworked weapons, pick up those orbs with super energy and more charge with light stacks, use your super, throw a grenade, get another finisher, pick up the wells and literally just repeat. In most casual activities you'll get your super pretty quick, within about 30 to 40 seconds if you do it right. In harder activities like a Master Nightfall it might take a bit longer, but you'll always get the first 50% of your super quickly and easily. You can adjust the build to whatever you prefer as we go along, but let's actually go ahead and create this build. So starting with the loadout, as usual for casual activities to get you super fast, you want to use Bad JuJu to get that super energy faster, or use a weapon with a fresh perk, or you can use a weapon with Wellspring to get your grenade abilities quicker, but Bad JuJu is preferred. For your heavy, use whatever you want, but for me I'd use a grenade launcher with chain reaction and an energy accelerant mod from the Season 14 artifact, because this is just completely insane for ad clearing and dealing extra DPS, which works great on weapons that have Firefly or Dragonfly as well, like my Vision Scout Rifle. Now if you're going into master activities, you ideally want to use a sniper and your main primary weapon. It doesn't matter what slot they're in, but if you need to switch out weapons to cover match game shields or champion mods, then you can do so. It's not really that important as the build is mostly focused for the subclass rather than the weapons, but on top of that, you ideally want to use an Anarchy because it's just a king, but if you don't have it, any grenade launcher is fantastic this season, especially if you pair it with the Breach and Clear mod. Now for the exotic armor, we are using Cuirass of the Fallen Star, which you can get from Legend of Master Lost Sectors when it's on rotation as a random awful drop chance, and this exotic is definitely worth grinding and getting, and I strongly recommend you get both Anarchy and the Cuirass exotic as they're just both purely OP. But this exotic will increase our Thundercrash damage by actually quite a lot. A normal Thundercrash deals a total damage of 168,878, and using the Cuirass of the Fallen Star exotic you'll deal a total of 337,755, which is a huge increase of actually around double the initial damage, so you can see why it's definitely worth using, as this just melts pretty much all bosses in the game. Before the subclass, of course, we're running the middle tree Arc Thundercrash, also known as Coda the Missile, and this comes with Ballistic Slam, which is 1, annoying in PvP, and 2, actually quite fun to use in PvP, but slamming enemies will also grant us super energy, which is perfect for our build as we are a super build. But with this you want pulse grenades because they're just the best. For the helmet mods you want a new Overload Wellmaker, which is a new Season 14 elemental well mod, and this will create 2 arc elemental wells when you defeat an enemy with a finisher, more on this soon. But alongside that, slot on your heavy weapons ammo finder mod. Now if you're in more chilled out activities, you can switch out this for hands-on for extra super energy or melee kills. Moving on though, for the gauntlets, we're using Elemental Charge to become Charger Light when picking up those Elemental Wells, and because we're picking up Arc Elemental Wells, we will become Charger Light twice, But because there's 2, we'll actually get 4 stacks, which is pretty OP and underrated for how easy it is to become Charge of Light. And taking this into master activities where you can and should just finish all champions, you'll pretty much always be Charge of Light. But with this, you'll also have enough energy points to slot on your champion mods that you will need as well. For the chest, we're running Cuirass of the Fallen Star as previously mentioned, which will pretty much double your super's damage. And with this, we'll be using Energy Converter to generate up to the first 50% of our super energy by just throwing a grenade, which you'll be able to do quite often for that extra free super energy. And alongside that, we have our ammo reserve mods for a heavy weapon. Now for the legs, we're using Supercharged for an extra 2 stacks of Charge of Light, bringing the total to 4 stacks. And picking up those 2 elemental wells, as mentioned earlier, will give us an instant 4 stacks. So 1 finisher equals 4 stacks of Charge of Light. And then using a grenade and doing this once or twice will pretty much give us half of our super just like that. And when you're in casual activities, you'll just use Bad JuJu to finish off the remaining energy and pick up orbs generated for extra energy. And with this mod, you want to slot on your ammo scavenger mod for your heavy weapon again. Lastly for the class, I'm using Taken Charge to become Charge of Light on all pickups, which is just a bonus, but you can also use Charged Up for the final 5th stack of Charge of Light if you want. And to be honest, you probably should, and it's probably better for you in harder activities. It'll just mean you'll need to do another finisher for that last 1 orb. But with these mods, I'm also going with Energy Accelerant to make our energy and heavy weapons that have those perks do more damage, because that will help you out in the end game as well. And then Surge Detonators for overloads as we're using arc grenades. And you'll be fine to throw the grenades, as you'll only use the Charge of Light stacks when you need super energy, and it won't consume the stacks if you have energy beyond 50%. But with the amount of elemental wells we can create from finishers, you should almost always have your grenade 9 times out of 10, so you don't really need to run 2 primary weapons for overload rounds and anti-barrier. If you're using Anarchy though, and your team aren't using Breach and Clear, then you could use that too. It's really up to you. If you want to maximise your boss DPS, use Anarchy, Breach and Clear and fire 2 shots at the boss to weaken them, then use your Thundercrash with the exotic. Then throw your grenade to get your super energy and just repeat. Finally though, for your stats you want to max out Discipline. You can go with Intellect, but to me it's too expensive and not worth using, as your grenades will pretty much just give you super energy regardless. So overall for this build, like most of my previous builds, this is in my top 5 builds of all time, and it's 100% definitely worth using if you are playing on a Titan. Of course you can make a few adjustments if you need to for the mods you currently have available, but this build does depend on the exotic armor to be the most effective for boss DPS. And this build is the best boss DPS build to use in Destiny 2, just be careful when using it in master activities or harder when you're underpowered, because yes, you're strong, but you gotta remember you can also die quickly too, so play it smart when using this build in endgame content. I'm also going to point out that this build melts Gambit bosses in Gambit, so use it in there if you ever go into Gambit on a Titan. Trust me, you'll win every game if you use it right. But guys, as always, that is all for this one, and next you should go check out the never ending playlist that keeps growing every week for all the classes. But for now, tell me what you think of this build this season, and what builds you'll be using by leaving a comment below, or just leave a rating, subscribe and share for more, because there's plenty more coming. Take care, stay tuned, and I'll see you all shortly for the next one.